Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve. So, how is the parallel economy really doing? Is it thriving? Is it struggling? Do we have any hard data that gives us some indication of its growth, of what Patriot business owners are doing, what they're investing in, how they're hiring, and the like? Well, I'm joined by two guests who are going to tell us just that. Andrew Krabuschetz of redballoon.work and Michael Seifert of Public Square. They've just released a huge new report called the Freedom Economy Index, which compiled data from the over 50,000 small businesses that are on the Red Balloon and Public Square networks to gain insight on the success of these businesses, their hiring trends, their sense of optimism, and their perspective on the political future of our country and our economy. So, Andrew, Michael, welcome back to the channel. Great to see you both.
Thanks for having us, Steve.
Yeah, good
Uh,
to see you.
it's great to see you guys. And I got to tell you, this is so cool because I get asked this all the time and I don't have the answer. So I have to fudge something. I don't know. How is the parallel economy actually doing? That's what they're asking me. Do we have any data on it? And that's precisely what I'm so excited about with you guys, because that's what you're bringing to us. So if you would just give us a bit of the backstory to all this, what inspired you to put together the Freedom Economy Index?
Yeah, let me take a whack at that. Basically, a lot of these small businesses feel like they don't have a voice because they don't. A lot of people in DC, mainstream media, they don't want to listen to the people in America who are actually making the economy going, who are showing up every day, doing their job, being faithful, supporting families, and building what is really the economy, not just the freedom economy, but the economy for the US. They don't have a voice because a lot of the elites don't want to hear from them. And so we wanted to give them a voice. We wanted to give them a voice at scale and be able to say, hey, most of the Americans who are tired of this leftist agenda have strong opinions about the economy, about their business, about politics, about society. And we want to make sure that that opinion is out there. And so that's why we did the Freedom Economy Index. We've done it for 2 months in a row now. And it's really interesting and it's exciting because these are businesses that if you read mainstream media, if you listen to the pundits coming out of DC, they are so out of touch with what the rest of America actually wants and what they really think about. So that's what the freedom economy is. And it's telling the rest of America that these people are showing up, they're doing their job, and it is exciting because they're growing and they're taking responsibility. So we'll go into some of the results, but that's what the Freedom Economy Index is and what we're trying to accomplish with it.
Amazing. That's so cool. Michael, what surprised you the most in the world of patriotic small businesses? I do think of you guys as like five-star generals in the parallel economy. You're really on the front lines there. What's happening in the field? What surprised you?
Well, I will tell you that what surprised me was maybe a little different than what would surprise the average reader that doesn't have as much exposure to the parallel economy as Andrew or I do. We talk to these businesses all day long, and we have the pleasure and the opportunity to hear their stories and their concerns and also their triumphs, the areas in which they really feel like they're winning. And we're proud to partner with them so that they can win more. But what I will tell you that's most surprising that we're hearing from the broader population that's assessing these results is that our businesses, though we are facing very dire economic times, are actually thriving. That in the face of a lot of adversity, these businesses are resilient. What we are told in culture today is that there's essentially 5 to 10 companies that own everything and nobody else exists or matters besides those few entities. What we are able to bring to the table is this massive compilation of tens of thousands of businesses that say, we are here, we matter, we provide incredible products and services, we keep the American economy going and thriving. And it doesn't matter what's happening in Washington, D.C., we are committed to succeeding within our own business influence. So what was most surprising broadly reviewing the results is seeing the fact that these businesses do feel very negative about the economy broadly. They sense a recession is coming. They have felt the effects of inflation, but that does not take them out of the arena. Instead, it's only causing them to press in more. And to see the level of hope that they feel amidst a lot of economic uncertainty was incredibly refreshing and was a welcome surprise.
Yeah, I read that on the report on your summation of it, and I was excited about that as well. That the optimism they had, even in the midst of recognizing most likely a recession in the next year, and to me, what hit me is then that means these business owners are really living out a parallel economy mindset, aren't they? A mindset of self-sufficiency. I draw a bit of inspiration from the Amish. I'm in the Pennsylvania area, and the Amish are, of course, incredibly industrious. But what I admire about them is how little Washington, D.C. factors into their lives. They're as self-sufficient from the federal apparatus as you can get. And it just sounds like, at least I thought it was about, would I see it right, 50% or so, we're actually very optimistic about the future, fully recognizing the challenges. And that just tells me that they're embracing a comparable kind of self-sufficiency. They're not, in other words, they're not waiting for the dolts in DC to do something, or changes in administration in order to move forward and financially flourish. What do you think?
No, that's absolutely true. So yeah, 80% of them thought that we're going into a recession, but many of them are not only optimistic about their business, but they're hiring right now. So they're actually expanding their business. They are investing in their business and their people because they see success. And this should not be surprising to us. It's really a tale of two economies right now. You see this at the state level, right? You see the blue states that are struggling to make their budgets balance, or just giving up and not having a balanced budget, whereas red states are doing very, very well. And this is happening at the business level as well. And it should not be surprising. If you show up and do what you say you're going to do for the price you say you're going to do it, when you say you're going to do it, you're going to do well in business. I was talking to an HVAC company in the Midwest recently. He said he's backlogged for 18 months right now because he is willing to work hard. He's finding good people that want to work for him, and his business is thriving. And that would be the encouragement that I think a lot of Americans, when you look at Ukraine, when you look at Asia, you look at DC, you feel like, man, we're alone. We're the only ones who are out there fighting the good fight. But what this survey is showing is that there are a lot of Americans who are working hard, who are thriving. They're taking responsibility, Steve. I think you talked about that a little bit. When they see the bad economy around them, you kind of have two choices. And a lot of us have these choices. We can either sit on our couch and wring our hands and be like, oh man, it's terrible. What are we going to do? Or we can take responsibility for where we are, for our business, and we can go out there and thrive. And that was really interesting. The other thing that was really interesting, probably the most fascinating thing to me out of this whole survey, was you would expect a lot of these people to want to vote Republican, right? We asked them a lot of questions about politics. You expect them to vote Republican, even vote for Donald Trump, obviously the leading candidate for the Republican Party. But what's interesting to me is 60% of them said they were more likely to vote for Donald Trump because of the indictments, not despite the indictments, or because of those indictments. They said, you know what? He's clearly one of us. They're going after us, and he's just in the way. And so we're more likely to vote for him. So if that was a plan to try and sideline Donald Trump, it actually is not working. It's stealing the resolve of a lot of these people and saying, no, I'm more likely to vote for Donald Trump because of those indictments. And I think the people in DC are so out of touch. They're focused on throwing money at Ukraine and indicting Donald Trump and all these things. And the rest of America doesn't even want that stuff.
So fascinating. So yeah, we saw a doubling of his support, particularly among Black voters. I was talking to Carol Swain, who's a Black scholar from Vanderbilt University in Princeton, and she said, all in, particularly in the Black community and in the non-white working class, all indicting Trump did was more or less take him from one cultural space, i.e., Manhattan billionaire, and put him in another cultural space, i.e., a guy who got a mugshot and got arraigned. And the question then, of course, is, okay, if you're a non-white working class person, how many, brash New York billionaires do you know versus how many guys who've unfortunately had mugshots taken do you know? And all of a sudden, he became so radically familiar to them. So I think that happened in all kinds of levels, in all kinds of ways. He was no longer somebody objectively set apart. Now he became, in a sense, one of us, and we feel very much as if we're under attack, and he's just the one who's more or less the lightning rod for it. How about COVID mask mandates? I mean, they're not really. I mean, people started to get really nervous about this a couple of weeks ago. It seems to have dissipated a bit, but did the survey did it take into consideration attitudes towards a return of COVID or anything akin to that?
Yeah, our businesses are as resolved at standing against the mandates as they ever have been. In fact, one unique identifier of the compilation that we've assembled of these businesses is that they've never been a part of the mask or vaccine mandates. They never bought in. In fact, they always unsubscribed from that corruption and infringement of constitutional rights. So that's actually how Public Square got its start. In many ways, I know that's how Red Balloon got its start, that
Right.
we actually highlighted a network of businesses that refused to bow to the COVID mob. And these
Right.
businesses were ones that would never force you to wear a mask. They would never force you to get vaccinated. And I actually think that something interesting that was highlighted in the survey, obviously, is just that they still feel as strong today about that position as they did 2 years ago when they were pushed into a corner on those issues. What's fascinating, though, is that I actually think it was almost like some of that messaging of the past few weeks was there to test us, to see the receptivity of the United States policy and our willingness maybe to go along back into the COVID tyranny. And now they're trying to say that there's a next round of vaccinations. But to see online, to see within our business community, to see amongst the general population this immediate rebuke of people, by the way, that I know personally,
Yeah.
that 2 years ago were tweeting that, yeah, you know what, we probably should mask up. Those people are now like, heck no, over my dead body will I ever wear one of those masks. I saw a guy that a year and a half ago said, we definitely need to follow the authorities. They have our best interests in mind. This guy on Twitter now is saying, I will literally drive 18 hours instead of getting on a plane if I have to wear a mask.
Right.
The resolve of the American people has been found. And ultimately, that needs to happen in the world of consumer spending and business community more than anywhere else. We're creating truly a new chamber of commerce that is going to be about the liberties that have made this country so special. And it doesn't matter what pandemic or natural catastrophe or whatever you try to throw at us, this business community will stand up for the freedoms allotted to every single American endowed by our creator, no matter what. And that's refreshing to see.
It is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Did you have something there, Aaron?
Well, I was just going to say, and it's a lot bigger than a lot of the people on the left want to admit, right? We're talking about 50,000 businesses, but growing very, very rapidly. People are being either red pilled or they're just coming out and living their values out loud. These are businesses that were like, well, I'm going to try and be neutral. And then they realize there is no neutrality anymore. You see what Indeed did recently. They kicked Answers and Genesis off.
Do you want to bring that up? Because I think
jobs.
Yeah, bring this up because this is huge. This is crazy.
It's crazy. So Answers in Genesis is, they're just trying to push for what the Bible says and educate people about science, right? And Indeed said you are not allowed to post jobs or participate in our platform anymore. Ken Ham actually wrote a letter to the Indeed management saying, look, we're a Christian organization. And they said, nothing doing. We don't want any part of that. And we've actually heard that from a lot of smaller businesses who call themselves freedom loving or God fearing, and they were kicked off that platform. And then Indeed turned around and said, but what we are going to do is we're going to pay up to $10,000 to employees who are trapped in states that will not allow them to mutilate their children. And we are going to help them move to states where they can do horrible things to their children, whether it's puberty blockers or trans surgeries, right? So Indeed is using their profits, your money. If you post jobs on Indeed.com, they're using your money to try and destroy your way of life. So they're kicking off Christian organizations. They're just trying to hire employees. They're not trying to push a worldview on Indeed. They're just trying to hire employees. Luckily, we were able to help Answers in Genesis get a lot of employees.
There you go.
But this is what's happening in our culture today. We do not have the neutral world that I think a lot of us wish we had or think that we had, because when Indeed is pushing a worldview so hard like that, that's when people are starting to rise up. And that is this freedom economy that is all around us. It's actually kind of an exciting moment, even if it's a little bit scary.
It is. Well, hence Red Balloon, right? I love the story of how you named your company with a hot air balloon ride. Is very scary, but it's also very exciting, and red being the color of opportunity in so much of our nation right now with red states versus blue states. I'm thinking too, just to underscore even what Michael was saying, just look at the transformation of Scott Adams. Scott Adams, the Dilbert creator, 2 years ago, he was beaten up, vax skeptics left and right, having online debates with them, and he was fully compliant with, the then Jack Dorsey Twitter, just structure, ethos, or whatever, and now he's done a complete about face. And you reminded me of him because he said if the mandates come back, on the airlines, we've got to bury them. We've got to go full Bud Light on airlines. I know it's Homeland Security. It doesn't matter if they're complying with it. We're not going to. So it's stunning. Jordan Peterson went through something very similar as well. It is astonishing to see how so many are saying, like Gandalf, you shall not pass. There's no way we're going with this again. What did you catch in terms of our value alignment? Are business owners still very much committed to aligning their business with their conservative values?
Very much so. Obviously that was sort of baked into the cake, given that this Freedom Economy Index that we polled was made up of businesses that were either on Public Square or Red Balloon, both of which are locations where you do affirm a set of values by joining as a part of the experience. So that was sort of a given, but at the same time, it was very neat to see their further resolve toward those values, that they've only become more passionate. I think this goes back to Andrew's point that the Trump indictments, for example, did not actually sway people away from their values. If anything, they're pressing in further for liberty. They feel like, man, I'm going to go support this guy even more now because I see what the regime is doing to try to suppress the liberties that we hold dear. People are more passionate than ever. By the way, that's not just the economy in our world in terms of hiring or consumer spending. It's happening in entertainment. Look at Sound of Freedom. I mean, look at the type of box office success that movie was on 1/100th of the budget of the major Disney films. Look at Richmond, North of Richmond, and this sort of populist anthem, a revolt against DC. By the way, I'm filming this podcast from DC right now, and you can just like smell it through the hotel walls. The slime is so
you are north of Richmond now. That's right.
For sure.
And you would have thought, if you would have polled our businesses and asked them, what are your greatest concerns? You would have thought, inflation. You would have thought maybe hiring, tough job market. Those things are definitely concerns. Inflation was number 2. The number 1 thing was we have no trust in our elected leaders. That was their number 1 concern. We have no faith in our elected leaders. The institutions that were supposed to represent us no longer do. And so their resolve at standing against those institutions, unsubscribing from the broken system and subscribing to a new freedom economy that values them is stronger than ever. Last thing I'll say on that point, it's kind of funny because if you look at what the media or the establishment tells us that the number 1 concerns of Americans are, it's climate change. It's an existential threat. It's Ukraine. We got to give them more money so Zelensky can buy more bland outfits. It's diversity. We have to hire amongst more quotas and embrace affirmative action. None of those things registered as even noticeable concerns amongst our business community. In fact, they've told us the very opposite. They actually think that the overemphasis on those sorts of progressive social issues has caused more detriment to the economy than good. So it was good to see that these folks are with us. They're excited about the future of the country, and the silent majority is no longer silent.
I have to say it sounds like, one term I ran across is they call it soft secession. It's not hard formal secession, signing a decree and picking up the rifles, or it's just a soft secession. I just don't want to deal with you anymore. And I'm going to realign my life around people. And we can do it in a way we just never could before the rise of the internet, since we could really, the basic organizing principle of social order was proximity, hence why we had big cities and the like in the industrial structures. But now we can relate to each other through the internet and through networks. And so I was just talking to the owner of the Oklahoma Bank.
Old Glory?
Old Glory Bank. Yeah. And it was so fascinating because, they're a national bank. And so, and of course, totally unwoke, and anybody can have an account there. And that's one of the first things he said we used to be aligned. Old Glory Bank, or it's an old bank that they bought out some time ago, but it was started like in 1910 or so. But they, it used to be a local bank because the only way you can access it was through proximity. And now we're no longer limited by proximity more. Now we have things like what we're doing right now with the network society. And it just seems like this is creating new opportunities where we can network with each other at levels that are absolutely, astronomical, a scale that we never even imagined. And we don't even have to deal with these goonballs anymore, in DC or for people in Europe, Davos and Brussels and London and the like. We just don't have to deal with them anymore. We can actually live a soft secessionist life. I mean, as a matter of fact, a lot of the liberals on Slate.com and Salon.com are basically accusing us of doing that. Red states have, for all practical purposes, seceded from the union. We're passing pro-life legislation, as far as they're concerned, anti-trans, anti-LGBT legislation, pro-school choice legislation. We're living out our values, and we don't need DC to tell us how to live. It just sounds to me like you're describing now the economic outworking of that.
Well, and it will have a huge economic ramification, right? When hardworking conservatives work together and seek to support each other, that economy is going to thrive because they're just going to be working hard. When you look at Silicon Valley Bank failed. They spend a lot of money on BLM and on DEI and on microaggression training. And whenever you're spending time not on your business is going to fail. It's really going to struggle. And what's exciting is it used to be, as conservatives, our option was, okay, we're going to boycott Target. And what are we going to do next? Right. We still got to buy stuff. Right. And if you boycott Indeed because they're supporting trans surgeries, but you still need to hire employees. And that's what's exciting about this parallel economy. You can hire employees at Red Balloon. You can go to Public Square. And I don't want to steal Michael's thunder, but I know that you're going to be able to buy things directly at Public Square, not just have a listing of businesses, but start to do your shopping there. And when you can do that, you don't have to support Amazon anymore. So it's not just, it's a boycott, it's a spendcott, right? We can start to support each other. We can start to build this economy and just opt out, right? If you're going to tell me I have to wear a mask or get a vaccine or bow my knee to the latest DEI trend, I'm just like, I'm just going to go over here where it's a better party anyway. So I'm not going to come to your party anymore.
It's so true. And by the way, just shout out to Michael. My wife was just on Public Square because we're looking to kind of redo our bathroom. And she said, I got to find a good contractor. Hey, I'm going to go on Public Square. Boom. We've got 3 names right in our area right now, straight from Public Square. It was just awesome. It's just such a perfect.
That's amazing.
So yeah, it's such a wonderful resource. And they share your values, and it's just the fellowship, and we'll see the quotes they give us, that kind of thing. Anything else? I mean, I looked at the report. This is available to people, right? How they can download this report?
Yes, they definitely
absolutely.
Can.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll have a link down below. Anything else that you just found interesting or striking that you want to leave us with?
I'll just say briefly, this network of 50,000 businesses, these are not the multinational conglomerates. These are really small businesses. The majority of these businesses have 10 or less employees. These are businesses that deserve our support right now. There's something interesting happening in our economy where over the next decade, we can expect to see over $12 trillion in assets transferred from the boomer generation to who knows where. It's either going to be private equity or BlackRock or State Street, or it's going to be the furthering of the small business economy by passing on those businesses to other small business entrepreneurs and people that want to press into their local communities, et cetera. So I think doing surveys like this is so important. Hearing the voice of these folks is so important because they really are the backbone of the United States, but they're under a lot of pressure and the government does not care about them. In fact, the government is salivating at the idea that they get to conduct that wealth transfer because they want to broker it. As long as they get to have the hands on the scales and they get to control the BlackRocks and they get to control the large private equity firms that'll gobble up these businesses, they can't wait for that day. And it is up to the consumers in our communities, to the employees at your workplaces, continue to take a stand for your values. Move your money to these establishments that you want to continue supporting, because that will pour gas on the fire of their own personal journeys. It'll encourage them to keep it within the family. It'll encourage them to pass on those businesses to the next generation. We do not want to see the wealth transfer that we saw during COVID from the small businesses to the Amazon. We do not want to see that happen again on even a greater scale. But unless consumers stand up and put their money where their values are, that's the future we have to look forward to. So we're trying to create one in which that doesn't happen, and we'd love everybody's help.
Yeah. And I'd add to that, This should be a moment that is very encouraging to people because it's hard to be brave when you're alone, right? It's just you against the dragon. It's like, oh man, what am I going to do? But we are 50,000 strong and growing rapidly. You are part of a movement. And so go do something, right? If every conservative, if every Christian in this country changes one piece of their behavior tomorrow, and then one piece of their behavior the next day, whether it's their spending habits, where they're working, who they're supporting, the impact on this nation would be profound. And so you don't feel like you need to boil the ocean personally. You're part of a bigger movement, but go do something. Don't just sit around and hope that someone else will do it. You're the person that is going to make an impact on your community, on your family. And you're setting a standard now that your family, that your kids, whoever it is, they're going to look to you and be like, oh, that's the hero in my story. That's the person that's being brave. They're changing their behavior. They're working for a better country with every little action that they do. And if we all do that, man, I think the change will not only be profound, but it'll be a lot faster than a lot of us think. So that would be my encouragement to everyone. Don't sit around and be worried. Go do something, and it's going to be amazing what we can accomplish together.
Amen to that. Again, click on the link below, download the Freedom Economy Index, amazing data compiled of over 50,000 small businesses that are on Red Balloon and Public Square networks, and definitely avail yourselves of both those redballoon.work, Public Square. These networks are at the heart of the parallel economy in many respects. They're mediating. They're the clearinghouses of the parallel economy. You definitely want to check those out. Andrew Crapuchettes and Michael Seifert, thank you so much, both of you, for being with us. I want to have you back very, very soon.
Thank you
Thanks for
both.
having us.